With us on the broadcast is Irina Matvyshin, a Ukrainian journalist joining us from Lviv. Thanks very much for being here with us. If I can start by asking you to give us a better sense of what things are looking like where you are.
Well, right now I'm in Lviv in western Ukraine, which is now relatively safe, although we've had Russians hit the military base here. So right now, nobody feels very safe anywhere in Ukraine, but Lviv and Western Ukraine has become a refuge for many IDPs from all around Ukraine, and it also became a sort of like a rear front line where volunteers and fighters can regroup, where humanitarian aid is collected, and where IDPs and refugees find their temporary shelters here. The situation is more or less fine compared to the rest of Ukraine, but still we feel the consequences of war everywhere.
Indeed. Just a short while back, Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the U.S. Congress. He got a standing ovation. The message was clear. He wants a no-fly zone over Ukraine. That is something that the NATO has already, time and again, ruled out. What is your assessment of the support from the West so far?
I think it's unprecedented support. Since the war started in 2014, we haven't seen anything like that. And that's very important that people all around the world, in any country, they support Ukraine and they express this public solidarity with Ukraine. I receive so many messages from my friends, from acquaintances, from strangers who support Ukraine, and they express it publicly on many levels. I think it's very important because this behavior forces their governments to act and to do something for Ukraine. Of course, right now, they deliver a lot of humanitarian aid. They help Ukraine financially, and which also helps to sustain Ukrainian army. But that's not enough because civilians are hit from the sky. And that's why the main message from Ukraine is that NATO has to close the sky. But as we've seen, this request is not, it's kind of like a no-go for NATO because they're afraid of World War III, and many people in the West are also afraid of that, so they don't go to protests asking NATO to close the sky. For us, it's essential because we see people dying daily from bombardments, and no humanitarian aid, no help for the army helps us prevent that. As we've heard from Zelensky, his alternative is to provide more air defense weapons to Ukraine that would help Ukraine intercept and destroy Russian airplanes and Russian fighter jets. That is the only alternative here. But again, like we have to protect our children and to protect Ukrainians from bombardments. We have to ask for the closure of for the no-fly zone.
Russia has been talking peace and negotiating with Ukraine, even as those attacks on the ground have continued. What do you make of the way these talks have panned out so far?
Well, as we've seen previously, those talks didn't help to solve anything, and Ukrainians well known from historical experience that any talks with Russia do not bring anything good, because they usually use this time to regroup and to launch another attack. For now, we don't trust these talks much. Even though we hope that somehow they will reach some middle ground and will reach some agreement on peace for civilians, at least for like less bombardment or preventing Putin from hurting and killing civilians. The talks are ongoing, and we've seen that they couldn't reach the ground on some definitions and probably like some basic things. That's obvious because what Ukrainians want and what Russia wants is on the polar sides. So I think it's a long and difficult process, but Ukrainians are hopeful, but at the same time they are skeptical of these talks because we know what's happening during these peace talks with Russia and like what are the consequences.
Iran Matvishin, appreciate you joining us here on WION World is One. Stay safe.
Thank you.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.